You know those arguments you have over and over again? The ones that feel like you're both just reading from a script you can't seem to put down? Well, what if the way we talk, especially that back and forth between two people, could actually be a masterclass in how to connect and really understand each other? Today we're going to break down the Dual Host Playbook, which is this amazing format that can turn personal stories and everyday fights into lessons for all of us on how to communicate way better.
It always starts with something small, doesn't it? A pair of socks on the floor. But as podcast host Zumi says, this is not about laundry. Oh no, it's about a ticking time bomb. And that one line just perfectly sums it up, how a tiny everyday annoyance can secretly represent a much, much bigger problem just simmering below the surface.
So here's the key takeaway. We're almost never arguing about the thing we think we're arguing about. The whole surface-level fight, the socks, that's just the symptom. The real issue, the thing underneath, is usually a deeper emotional need. It's about feeling ignored or like you don't matter or just plain disrespected. And this interactive dual-host format is just the perfect way to pull apart both of these layers, and they do it using two really cool techniques.
Okay, so the first technique is what I'm calling the story relay. This is where two hosts kind of toss a story back and forth, building on each other's experiences. It creates this conversation that feels super personal, but also something everyone can relate to. It's really just a powerful example of something we all know deep down. Being vulnerable is how you build trust.
So, let's look at the podcasting duo Tainu and Ting Ting. Tainu kicks things off with his hilarious story about his first date back in high school. The moment he holds the girl's hand, he has this, let's just say, an unexpected and super embarrassing physical reaction. And by sharing that cringy, vulnerable moment, he just instantly breaks down the wall between him and us, the listeners. Because, hey, we've all been there, right?
And then, just like that, the relay continues. Ting Ting jumps right in and shares her own story about a totally bizarre early online relationship. See, she was a total newbie in this online role-playing game, so she married a high-level player just so he'd help her level up. It's this kind of back-and-forth storytelling that makes the whole thing feel so alive and so much fun to listen to.
Now, Ting Ting's story isn't just a funny little anecdote. It's got a whole narrative arc. You see the beginning? Then the tension builds up as her so-called online husband gets a little creepy, and then the climax is something you would never expect. Her dad secretly logs into her game account to basically threaten the guy. It just goes to show how even a simple conversation can have a full-blown, compelling story inside it.
But here's where it gets really powerful. This story relay thing, it's not just for laughs. It's an incredible tool for getting into much deeper stuff. In this amazing shift, the very same hosts use this format to share secrets they've kept from each other for years. Things like almost joining a gang, surviving a medical misdiagnosis that was nearly fatal, and battling severe depression. This really shows you the incredible range of this dual host dynamic. It can go from being hilarious to profoundly vulnerable in a heartbeat, and that creates an even deeper connection.
Okay, so that was technique number one. Let's switch gears to the second one, which is a bit more analytical. Let's call it the viewpoint battle. This is where the hosts don't just share stories, they actually dissect their own disagreements live. They turn a personal fight into a structured analysis, making their argument a learning opportunity for all of us. This is where we get some real, practical tools.
To pull this off, they introduce some core psychological ideas, like the cumulative effect. And this is such a critical concept. The idea is that it's not one pair of socks that causes the big fight, it's the 100th pair. Every single time that small annoyance happens again, it adds another little layer of stress until the pressure is just too much, and boom, it's a pattern of frustration we can all recognize.
And that explosion, it follows a really predictable, destructive path. A small issue happens again and again. The stress builds, and then the whole conversation takes a toxic turn. We stop talking about the socks, the actual behavior, and we start attacking the person's character. You forgot to pick up your socks turns into, you are so lazy and irresponsible. And that right there, that's the moment a conversation becomes a battle.
At this point, the entire goal of the conversation just flips. As the hosts figure out, the argument is no longer about finding a solution. It becomes a fight to defend our own ego, right? To prove that we are not the bad person we've just been accused of being. And in that kind of fight, nobody wins. You just create more distance. So, how do we break this awful cycle? This is where this dual host format really shines. By analyzing their own fights, the hosts actually model a better way forward. They offer practical, real strategies for communicating more constructively, especially when things get heated. What they do is they basically give us a communication toolkit that anyone can use. So instead of fighting about socks, you identify the core need behind it.
the need to feel relaxed in a tidy home. Instead of demanding everything be your way, you set up responsibility zones, which is this great compromise between shared rules and personal freedom. These aren't just little relationship hacks, these are solid principles for negotiation and empathy.
And when you put these two approaches side by side, wow, the difference is just night and day. On the left, you've got that destructive loop. Accusation, then defensiveness, a downward spiral into proving who's right. But on the right, you see a path to actually solving the problem. By using an iMessage, the focus shifts from blaming the other person to just talking about your own feelings. That simple little language change is huge. It stops the other person from getting defensive and invites them to work with you instead of fighting back.
So in the end, the dual host playbook is so incredibly effective because it perfectly combines the two things we need to truly connect with each other: raw, honest storytelling that makes us feel understood, and clear, structured analysis that gives us the tools to handle our own conflicts. It's this amazing fusion of our emotional side and our logical side.
And all this really leaves us with one final thing to think about. In your own life, in your own relationships, what's your version of the socks on the floor? What's that small, seemingly tiny thing that actually holds a much deeper meaning? And how might a different kind of conversation about it change everything?